Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Israel latest, U.S. strikes Iran-linked targets in eastern Syria. Israeli tanks at gates of Gaza hospital where hundreds of patients are trapped. Bombing Gaza won't bring Israel victory. Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital ceases to function as Israel and Hezbollah exchange fire. Civilian buildings increasingly at center of Israeli operation in Gaza. Israel latest, U.S. strikes Iran-linked targets in eastern Syria. Yahoo! The U.S. conducted airstrikes in eastern Syria on targets linked to Iran, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, while President Joe Biden spoke with Qatar's ruler about trying to secure the release of hostages in the Gaza Strip. Israeli tanks at gates of Gaza hospital where hundreds of patients are trapped. South China Morning Post. The Israeli forces have reached the gates of Gaza City's main hospital and doctors inside have said that patients are dying from lack of fuel and electricity. The Gaza Health Ministry has said that in the past 3 days 32 patients have died, including 3 newborn babies. The Israeli government has ordered the total evacuation of the northern half of Gaza and has said that it has attempted to evacuate babies from the neonatal ward and left 300 liters of fuel to power emergency generators at the hospital entrance. Bombing Gaza won't bring Israel victory. Al Jazeera. The bombing of Cambodia in the 1970s and the ongoing bombing of Gaza share similarities, but also key differences. Both involved massive aerial bombardments by powerful nations seeking to eliminate a perceived threat. In Cambodia, the U.S. dropped 2.7 million tons of bombs over the country, making it potentially the most heavily bombed country in history. In Gaza, Israel has dropped thousands of bombs and missiles, causing extensive damage and loss of life. However, there are also important differences. The bombing of Cambodia was largely kept secret from the international community, while the bombing of Gaza is openly boasted about by Israeli leaders and receives support from Western powers. Additionally, Palestinians in Gaza have nowhere to flee to escape the bombing, while Cambodian civilians could try to escape the sound of incoming bombers. The article argues that the international community's failure to take decisive action against Israel for its bombing campaigns in Gaza is allowing the destruction of the Palestinian people to continue. Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital ceases to function as Israel and Hezbollah exchange fire. Financial Times. Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, has ceased to function due to running out of fuel and being surrounded by Israeli troops. The hospital is in the heart of Gaza City and has been affected by airstrikes and gunfire, making it impossible for civilians to escape. Efforts by the Israel Defense Forces to take control of the site have become a diplomatic issue between Israel and its allies, with the US and EU calling for restraint. The situation at the hospital has led to support for a ceasefire to protect Palestinian civilians. China, Russia, Iran and the prospect of American retreat. Financial Times. U.S. President Joe Biden's belief in American leadership and global alliances is rooted in an old idea that dates back to the 1940s. However, the return of former President Donald Trump to the White House in 2024 could jeopardize America's global leadership. Trump flirted with pulling the U.S. out of NATO in his first term and could follow through with that threat in a second term. This could lead to a complete break with the idea of America underpinning security arrangements in Europe, Northeast Asia, and the Persian Gulf, leaving a power vacuum for Russia, China, and Iran to exploit. Iran says it hopes to work with China to de-escalate Israel-Gaza war. South China Morning Post. China's head of West Asian and North African affairs, Wang Di, visited Iran over the weekend to discuss the Israel-Gaza war and boost ties between the two countries. Iran expressed its hope to strengthen communication and coordination with China to de-escalate the war in Gaza. Wang reiterated China's stance on the conflict, calling for an urgent need for ceasefire due to the large-scale civilian casualties. The visit comes ahead of a summit between Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Joe Biden, where the two leaders will discuss the situation in Gaza. China's influence on Iran is seen as having the potential to prevent the war from escalating. Israel holds off on threatened shutdown of Al Jazeera locally. Reuters. Israel has delayed the closure of the local bureau of Al Jazeera, thereby allowing the Qatari-owned satellite station to continue operating. The decision comes amid tensions between Israel and Qatar over the latter's close ties to Iran and Hamas. Israel is hoping that Qatar can help secure the release of hostages held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government has accused Al Jazeera of pro-Hamas incitement and exposing Israeli soldiers to attacks. Foreign Minister Eli Cohen has said that he still favors a crackdown on the channel, but it is unclear whether this will now occur. Due to Trump's fear of returning to Gaza, says Dr. BBC. Professor Nick Maynard, a consultant surgeon based in Oxford, is on standby to go to Gaza and work in operating theaters with the charity Medical Aid for Palestinians. Maynard has been traveling to the Gaza Strip and West Bank for over a decade, and he feels a huge sense of duty to help the injured and sick people there. He believes that a complete ceasefire is needed, along with the creation of multiple corridors of aid, in order to help the people of Gaza. He warns of the imminent public health catastrophe in Gaza due to mass displacement, overcrowding, and damage to water and sanitation infrastructure. TikTok was slammed for its pro-Palestine hashtags. But it's not alone. Washington Post. The hashtag #FreePalestine has been used in more than 11 million Facebook posts and more than 6 million Instagram posts, compared to #StandWithIsrael, which has been used in less than 300,000 Facebook posts and 225,000 Instagram posts, according to data obtained by the Washington Post. The figures contrast with the claims of Republican congressmen that TikTok, owned by ByteDance, promotes pro-Palestine content in an effort to manipulate U.S. public opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict. TikTok has 150 million U.S. users. The congressmen have offered no evidence to support the claims, while TikTok has said its recommendation algorithm is politically neutral. Facebook and Instagram have also denied skewing content in favor of Israel. TikTok has removed more than 925,000 videos promoting terrorism, hate speech, or violence between the 7th and the 31st of October. That's all for today's news from the six-dimensional world. I'm Dr. Six, your friendly and witty observer. Let's recap what we've learned today. 1. The U.S. conducted airstrikes on Iran-linked targets in eastern Syria, while President Biden is working to secure the release of hostages in the Gaza Strip. 2. Israeli forces have reached the gates of Gaza City's main hospital, causing patients to die from lack of fuel and electricity. 3. The bombing of Gaza by Israel is openly boasted about and receives support from Western powers, unlike the secret bombing of Cambodia by the U.S. in the 1970s. 4. Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, has ceased to function due to running out of fuel and being surrounded by Israeli troops. 5. Israeli operations in Gaza have increasingly targeted civilian buildings, including hospitals, schools, and mosques. 6. The potential retreat of the U.S. under a future Trump presidency could leave a power vacuum for China, Russia, and Iran to exploit. 7. Iran hopes to work with China to de-escalate the Israel-Gaza war, and China's influence is seen as having the potential to prevent further escalation. 8. Israel has delayed the closure of Al Jazeera's local bureau, possibly due to Qatar's role in securing the release of hostages in Gaza. 9. A doctor based in Oxford feels a huge sense of duty to help the injured and sick people in Gaza, despite the risks. 10. Claims that TikTok promotes pro-Palestine content to manipulate public opinion have been debunked, with data showing a higher volume of pro-Palestine posts on other social media platforms. Now, let's dive into the analysis. The situation in Gaza is dire, with hospitals running out of fuel and patients dying. The indiscriminate bombing by Israel has resulted in extensive damage and loss of life, and the international community's failure to take decisive action is allowing the destruction of the Palestinian people to continue. The potential retreat of the U.S. under a future Trump presidency could further destabilize the region and leave room for other powers to fill the void. China's influence in Iran could potentially prevent the war in Gaza from escalating further. In the realm of social media, claims that TikTok promotes pro-Palestine content to manipulate public opinion have been debunked. Data shows that other social media platforms have a higher volume of pro-Palestine posts, indicating that this is a widespread sentiment among the public. Now, it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any questions? Let's have a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.